All right, our final recipient has earned many academic awards, including the National Merit Letter of Commendation, Orchestra, and Academic Letters. He is a member of his high school's rigorous STEM program and chamber orchestra, where he plays piano and viola. He has served as co-president for 2 years on the Arizona Buddhist Temple's youth organization and helped lead the annual Southern District Junior YBL Conference for 80 youth members. Congratulations to Cole Zeechrist of Perry High School. Segrist? Okay, sorry. Cole is currently on a college visit to the University of Washington with his family and unable to attend tonight. But how about a round of applause for Cole? And not only congratulations to the recipients, but congratulations to the parents. You must be very proud. All right? So next in the program, we have a reading of the JACL Creed. Nanako Sugiyama, please return to the podium. This isn't a surprise, right? You were informed? Okay. And do you have a print off, or would you like it from the program? Okay.
I'll now be reading the JACL Creed. I am proud that I am an American citizen of Japanese ancestry, for my very background makes me appreciate more fully the wonderful advantages of this nation. I believe in her institutions, ideals, and traditions. I glory in her heritage. I boast of her history. I trust in her future. She has granted me liberties and opportunities such as no individual enjoys in this world today. She has given me an education befitting kings. She has entrusted me with the responsibilities of the franchise. She has permitted me to build a home, to earn a living, to worship, think, speak, and act as I please, as a free man equal to every other man. Although some individuals may discriminate against me, I shall never become bitter or lose faith, for I know that such persons are not representative of the majority of the American people. True, I shall do all in my power to discourage such practices, but I shall do it in the American way, above board, in the open, through courts of law, by education, by proving myself to be worthy of equal treatment and consideration. I am firm in my belief that American sportsmanship and attitude of fair play will judge citizenship and patriotism on the basis of action and achievement, and not on the basis of physical characteristics. Because I believe in America and I trust she believes in me, and because I have received innumerable benefits from her, I pledge myself to do honor to her at all times and in all places, to support her Constitution, to obey her laws, to respect her flag, to defend her against all enemies, foreign or domestic, to actively assume my duties and obligations as a citizen cheerfully and without any reservations whatsoever, in hope that I may become a better American and a greater America. By Mike Masaoka, read into the Congressional Record on May 9th, 1941.
Next, we will move on to a student essay reading by Josh Tominaga. I'm sorry, Joshua. My son's name is Josh. That's a slip of the tongue.
Thank you. So my essay topic was what it means to be an American. To be an American can mean many different things. Many people have different opinions and ideas because of how diverse America is. To me, part of being an American is to always do what's right for yourself, others, and your country. The story of Norman Mineta reflects on what it means to be an American. The story has made me realize how relatable it is to many of my older relatives' stories and has inspired me to learn and reflect more about my family's history. An aspect about being an American is freedom. Nowadays, America is one of the most diverse countries in the world, and it is important to remember that at some points in time, not all of us had the luxury of freedom. Similar to Norman, many of my relatives were removed from their homes and were put in concentration camps in the 40s, while having to put up with many unjust rules and regulations after returning home from the camps. Much of my family has talked about dealing with many racist and prejudiced people and situations. This is something I imagine happened to all Japanese Americans across the nation, including Norman. Despite the negativity, Norman was very successful and was able to accomplish many things during his high school and college years, such as being elected as student body president and graduating from UC Berkeley with a major in business. The way he was able to look past all of the hate and negativity and was able to achieve great things is inspiring and shows how he was strong-minded and kept moving forward. Another aspect about being an American to me is always doing what's right for both yourself and your country. In 1953, Norman served as an intelligence officer during the Korean War, like many of my relatives. I've heard many accounts of discrimination in the military. Many people didn't even see them as Americans and would say racist comments towards them. Despite the discrimination and racism during that time, after the war, Norman became the first Asian American to become the mayor of a major city, San Jose. Norman became dedicated to becoming a politician and later on joined the United States Senate and became the Secretary of Commerce. This shows patriotism and dedication Norman had to improve his country. Later on, he would be appointed to the United States Secretary of Transportation in 2001, the same year of the September 11th attacks. As the Secretary of Transportation on September 11th, 2001, one of his subordinates ordered all civilian aircrafts to be grounded for the first time in history. Immediately after, Norman recognized racism and discrimination towards Muslims that he could relate to in the past. Norman explains, "There was even some talk about rounding them up, and I thought, I don't believe this is happening in 2001, given what I have experienced in 1942. Norman could relate to the hate they were receiving. He made sure his voice was heard while in a cabinet meeting a few days after the attacks. He wanted to ensure what happened to him in 1942 wouldn't happen to innocent Muslim Americans. His hard work and dedication to ensure freedom for every citizen is patriotic and inspiring, and to me, is a key role in what it means to be an American." Norman's story has inspired me to look into my own heritage and reflect on some of my own family's experiences as well. Both my grandparents were born in concentration camps, but many of my aunts and uncles were forced into concentration camps at a young age. Many of them were even teenagers around my age. They would have had personal belongings taken away from them and many rights violated. I could not imagine having to live in complete isolation from the rest of the world for a few years. My uncle has told me about times at his high school experiencing discrimination. Some of his classmates would yell and shout racial slurs because of events in the war that he had no control over. He talked about how he would have to deal with these types of ignorant people on a daily basis, although he would just look past it as much as he could. Although it is not nearly as bad as back then, there are still some instances of hate and racism in our country today. Events such as George Floyd's death and hate towards Asian Americans are a reminder that our country is far from perfect, and we must keep working to eliminate prejudice, hate, and racism. With how diverse America is nowadays, it is part of being an American to accept all people and treat every person equally. It is important that being American is not about being a specific race or being from a certain place. America is made up of a vast variety of people who come from all different sides of the world. Many people have different ideas and opinions, and we must all be able to respect each other and make conclusions not from where someone's from, their race or heritage, or physical appearance. Freedom is one of the major themes of America. It has been fought over with wars and rallied over by people. It is one of the base principles in our Constitution, yet not until recently have we been able to begin to give basic rights to every citizen in our country. Along with gaining freedom, racism was and still is a major issue in our country. Although we may all have natural rights, that does not stop some people from thinking racist and discriminatory thoughts. Some people still to this day end up making assumptions and conclusions based off of ethnicities. We must treat everyone with fairness and equality. We must also always do what's right for ourselves and our country, and always fight for freedom and equality. This to me is what it means to be an American. Thank you.
Nice work. I should also let everybody know that the students reading their essays were also recorded, and in the very near future we'll be posting those online as well. All right, at this point in our program, we are moving on to the Gold Swaro Award. Doris Asano, can you join me? Doris does not want to join me. She's got the Heisman. Okay. Eileen, you'll be joining us?
Yeah, I'm going to join you.
Okay. All right. So I'll get started on giving the background on our first award recipient. There's no mystery here, though. I'm going to start with his name. So Kelly Moore, there he is. Kelly Moore has served as Honorary Consul of Japan in Phoenix since 2004. After graduating from college, he spent a decade in Japan, 1973 to 83, where he developed a passion for all things of Japan, the food, the culture, the customs, the language. There he became an educator and worked in Japan, multiple roles. Back in the U.S., he continued teaching at Arizona State University and at Mesa Community College. He was also the principal of Arizona Gakuen, a K-9 school that teaches language arts, math, social studies, and science, all in Japanese. Among his many community activities include his service as a board of directors member for Arizona Matsuri Festival, where he developed a close relationship with all of our good friends, former JACL president Ted Namba. In fact, it was back in 2006 where I first met Kelly, when Ted invited me to attend a baseball game when Meiji University played Arizona State University. So it was a real honor to spend the evening with Kelly and Ted watching a ball game together.
Who won?
I don't remember. But here's what I do know. Now, as a baseball historian, I later learned that it was Kelly's father or grandfather who was on the welcoming committee for the Tokyo Giants in 1936. Great-grandfather? So 1936, Governor Moore? Okay. Welcomed the Tokyo Giants to Phoenix back in 1936. This is just before the start of the first Japanese professional baseball league. So some nice synergy to that, me meeting Kelly at a baseball game. So Kelly retired in 2020, I'm told, and he enjoys gardening, hiking, traveling. And so please join me in honoring Kelly Moore with the 2022 Golden Swaro Tribute Award. No. And you have an opportunity to say a word or two. Or three. But first we have to take a few photos. And are we going to do these as well? We'll do these. So this is a prop. The other ones are coming in the mail. Do you want to be in this, Doris? Here. Here? There we are. Doris, come here. We can Photoshop it, don't worry.
That's funny.
Everybody's Doris Asano.
Yeah, everybody's Doris Asano today.
Thank you.
I apologize. The plaques have not arrived. With the pandemic and with the mail, I could have shipped it overnight for $200 or just wait. So you know what I did.
Well, thank you very much. It's quite an honor. And just sort of, well, a couple of memories. When I first went to Japan, oh yes, I'm sorry. When I first went to Japan, I didn't know anything about it. I remember my first or second day there, someone tried to serve me tofu, and I looked at it and said, "These are egg whites. I'm not eating these." I had never heard of or seen tofu ever before. And in later years, I remember just sort of, when I was a young kid, I always said to my mother, "I wish I could go to school on Saturdays. That's my lifelong dream." And so I got involved with Arizona Gakuen School, and people would ask, Nanako-san would ask, or Joshua-kun would ask, or Ruru-chan would ask, and Germanero-san would ask, "Can we go to school on Saturdays?" I said, "Please." And you loved every minute of it, didn't you? Maybe. So, anyway, I would like to thank everyone for this honor, and I'm very appreciative of it. Thank you.
Flowers from the Arizona Matsuri Board. Well, that was fun. All right. Our next recipient, Bryce Suzuki. Bryce Suzuki is a partner with Snell and Wilmer, where he focuses his practice in bankruptcy, restructuring, and insolvency. He provides strategic business planning and dispute resolutions to a diverse range of lenders, companies, and business owners. Bryce also advises businesses in the field of cryptocurrency, blockchain, and other related technology. I wanted to say that just so I could say cryptocurrency and blockchain. Yeah, Bryce is very involved in his community. Some of the groups he serves on: the U.S.-Japan Council, the Japanese American Leadership Delegation, the ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, adjunct professor, the Arizona Equal Access to Justice Foundation, he's a board member, and of course, the Japanese American Citizens League, where he has provided his assistance since 2007 on some pretty small and large endeavors. So we thank you for your support on that. Bryce has received many levels of recognition and awards, from Arizona's finest lawyer to the Southwest super lawyer and the best lawyers in America. And in fact, he was once a guest of Barack Obama at a reception honoring Asian American and Pacific Islanders heritage. So please join me in honoring Bryce Suzuki with the 2022 Gold Swallow Tribute Award. You want to do some photos first? And
Okay,
then,
well-
yep, same pattern.
There you are. Your Doris. Your name's on it.
Yeah, listen. I'll be talking to Arizona today. Thank you so much.
Also flowers from the Arizona Matsuri.
He is our statutory agent for Arizona City for I don't know how many years. Yeah, lots of years. So thank you very much.
Lawyers aren't afraid to talk, and at this stage of the program, conventional wisdom would be never to hand the microphone to a lawyer as everyone's going to go home. But I promise I will be brief. I want to thank JACL, Doris, Donna, so many people, Kathy's back there, so many people that I've worked with over the years who've been real allies in my endeavors with the U.S.-Japan Council, with everything else. During the pandemic, I worked a lot from home, and my family's here. I want to thank them for coming out as well. And my kids really don't know what I do, and you heard what I do. It's pretty boring. My youngest son, Josh, said, "You know, I think all you do, Dad, is type emails, type documents, and do phone calls." And I said, "That's about right." So while that work, I ironically find rewarding in the same way that I think Kelly-san enjoys going to school on Saturday rewarding. It's not what sort of makes my heart beat and drives me forward. And the work that I've been able to do on a volunteer basis for JACL is kind of the outside counsel. That is what matters. And as I listen to the creed tonight, as I listen to the thoughtful essays of these students, it really brought that point home. And it makes this all the more rewarding to be recognized for these very small efforts in the scheme of things. And I'm happy to have been part of it. So thank you very much.
But Bryce, you're not done. There might be more work in the future. So, all right.
And he puts you a year.
Yeah. All right. I do believe we are in the home stretch. We will have a student essay reading and then some music. So, Erica, could you return? Yes.
Hi again. Thank you so much. I wrote this essay as the same prompt as Joshua, so what does it mean to be American? In 1942, my grandfather Ted was 12 years old. He was born in America and has lived here his entire life, indisputably American by anyone's standards. After Japan's military attacked Pearl Harbor naval base, many Americans suddenly called into question the loyalties of Japanese Americans. Although the vast majority of Japanese Americans were, like my grandfather, American citizens, the government publicly vilified people of Japanese descent as international spies and traitors. They never convicted a person of Japanese ancestry in the United States of serious espionage during the war, but the propaganda machine was agnostic to facts. My grandfather and his family faced intense discrimination and racism that arose overnight and persisted aggressively. Armed agents raided my family's farm and dragged his father away to a prison camp over a handful of heartfelt letters from friends in his native tongue. The agents stole my family's irreplaceable samurai relics and even pillaged my grandfather's Boy Scout knife, consequently branding it all evidence that his father was an agent of the Japanese government. News of his father's survival at an internment camp hundreds of miles away did not yet reach his mother until a heavily redacted letter arrived in the mail weeks later. These experiences were inherently American. The government committed every atrocity on American soil. Now distinguished politician Norman Mineta bore similar trauma in February of 1942 when the United States government marched the entire Mineta family to the Heart Mountain World War II internment camp in Wyoming when Norman was just 10 years old. These dehumanizing experiences followed all Japanese Americans, causing knock-on effects for years and even decades after the internment camps released their prisoners in 1945. As the young Mineta grew into a wildly successful political career in California, he felt convicted to bring Japanese American rights to the forefront of civil rights discussions. He took charge of many civil rights movements and organizations and eventually spearheaded the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. Norman Mineta's legacy is his ambition and drive to see something wrong with society and to use his power to change it. It's all too easy to ignore injustices, especially when time has passed and it's no longer the popular thing to do. While the Japanese were being incarcerated, the United States government pretended that they were keeping Americans safe. They released propaganda videos to soothe the public, emphasizing that the Japanese Americans were leading full lives while in prison, showing peaceful images of children playing, adults eating together, and families moving into their new homes. In reality, the camps were far from luxurious, with meager rations given out each day and families forced to pack their scarce belongings into single-room, unfurnished barracks. After their release, imprisonment left Japanese Americans broke, with no property, no money. A few lucky people could return to their jobs, but most of them had to start back at square one. Embarrassed by what had happened to them, Japanese Americans hid their pasts, fearing what might happen to them if they spoke about the growing inequalities. Norman Mineta chose a different path when he spoke up and began demanding reparations for what the government had taken away from innocent civilians. Norman finally got an apology for the Japanese people, and he opened up the discussion about internment, bringing in awareness of a forgotten injustice. I admire his drive to stand up for what he believed in, and hope that I can carry on his legacy of abolishing ignorance and increasing awareness. I believe that prevention accompanies awareness, so the more people talk about the Japanese internment, the less likely it is to happen again. However, the American core curriculum completely brushes over the internment of over 120,000 Americans. Japanese or not, this lack of education is truly unacceptable. The only time I learned about the internment was in my private school AP English class, where we read When the Emperor Was Divine by Julie Otsuka, a historical fiction novel that focuses on a Japanese family sent to an internment camp in Utah. This is most definitely a step in the right direction, but when will common U.S. history books cover this horrible atrocity that formed the lives of an entire generation of people? I've never truly thought about this before, but I would not have understood the impact of the Japanese internment had I not heard stories from my mother about what had happened to my grandfather and his family. While I'm proud of my heritage as a Japanese American, and for all that my ancestors have endured simply to be Americans, I'm incredibly saddened to realize that my pride seems rather out of place to outsiders without the context of the Japanese internment. To fully appreciate my heritage, I know I need to be fully aware of what it means to be a Japanese American. Mineta made huge strides for all of us, setting an example of what it means to be proud of our heritage, and teaching others why being Japanese is something to be proud of. There are many ways to be an American. For many immigrants, the American dream defines being American. They desire to move to the U.S., buy a home, own a business, and have a family. For some American people, being American means taking full advantage of the freedom granted to them by our constitutional rights. Other Americans believe that being American simply implies American citizenship. For myself, being American means embracing my background while being accepting of the background of others. We live in a country known for being a melting pot of cultures, each blending into another to create what we can call American culture. Norman Mineta was a perfect example of an American. He served the American people with his amazing work in transportation, kept the American people safe with his contributions during the 9/11 attacks, and paved the way for Asian Americans in politics, setting many firsts as he made his way through various governmental offices. Not only was Norman an adroit politician, but he was proud of his upbringing and represented how to be a Japanese American. I recently watched a documentary called For the Sake of the Children, directed by Marlene Shigekawa, where different Japanese American families told their internment stories. The focus of the documentary was on the secrecy surrounding the Japanese American past. Many of the people that experienced internment felt that they did not want to burden their families with stories from the past, so they never spoke about what happened to them. They spent their lives after internment drawing attention away from their roots, trying to be as American as possible so as not to be punished for the race ever again. This has led to an erasure of tradition and a sense of shame surrounding Japanese heritage. Norman Mineta did not choose to reject what others believed to be his shameful past, but spoke up about the atrocities endured by his family. He shared what others refused to acknowledge to give Japanese Americans a voice. He showed Americans that there can be pride in being different, and that it is these differences that make you American. Thank you.